Salutare și bine v-am regăsit la emisiune. Invitatul meu de astăzi este nimeni altul decât Oliver Stone. Regizorul de 3 ori premiat cu Oscar a venit la Cluj pentru a primi premiul pentru întreaga carieră la TIFF. Publicul îl poate întâlni atât la masterclass-uri cât și la proiecția filmelor Nuclear Now, dar și Natural Born Killers. Vom povesti atât despre aceste filme, dar și despre rolul media, ce înseamnă energia nucleară și multe alte lucruri.
Somebody once wrote, "Hell is the impossibility of reason." That's what this place feels like. Hell.
What's the best solution in your mind?
Largely nuclear.
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 Find the terrorist in the internet haystack.
Greed, for lack of a better word, is good. Greed works.
This is what you believe in, but I don't.
I'm a natural born killer.
A king isn't born, he's made.
We can stay here, get the shit kicked out of us, or we can fight our way back into the light. We can climb out of hell. 1 inch at a time.
You are a name living forever in history.
Mr. Oliver Stone, thank you for accepting this interview. Why is it important to talk about nuclear power?
Because it's probably one of the greatest gifts the nature has ever given us. It's been around since the beginning of time. It's warmed the earth. It's protected us and continues to protect us. There's a radioactive belt around the earth too that is important to protect the earth. So on top of that, Marie Curie in 1895 discovered this power of uranium because it was around for 5,000 years, but no one really was using it for anything else. It was powerful material. She discovered it with her husband, and then Einstein also knew the value of energy. He started to explore energy. And then during the 1930s and 40s, people like Enrico Fermi of Italy was able to experiment with uranium and control it, control the power of it. It was so powerful that it has the power of blowing away the whole world because it's that strong. But you have to control it. And that is the secret, getting energy from the earth. And so what happened is that, of course, when Fermi worked in controlling uranium, it was World War II. So they used it to build a bomb. And the bomb is enormously powerful. It's a nuclear bomb, or atomic bomb at that time. It's a nuclear bomb. But at the same time, it was controlled. And it's important to understand the difference between nuclear bomb and nuclear power. People don't understand that. The nuclear power is much, much less enriched. It is like 2-3%, sometimes more, but not much. The power of the bomb is like 80%, 90% enriched uranium. So you have to work very hard to build a bomb. A nuclear plant blows up, but it doesn't have the effect of a nuclear bomb. So we've had a couple of accidents over those 60 years, and there was the accident at Chernobyl, which is the only real accident that happened in terms of danger and death. At Chernobyl, 50 Soviet first responders died from radiation, intense radiation, and then beyond that, there's been explorations of the Chernobyl area by the United Nations and the World Health Organization. They came up with 4,000 deaths from possible deaths from radioactivity. It's hard to tell because some people die naturally of cancer. But, you know, the point is that we go to the dentist. And there's 1/3 of our radiation comes from those examinations. There was also chemotherapy. They give high doses of radiation to people who have cancer, and of course, it works for the most part. But of course, it's a high dose of radiation. So the point many points are made about nuclear power. They misunderstand that radiation is good at a low level, and many people appreciate it. It's, you fly on an airline, you go to certain granite buildings, you have more radiation. I can eat a banana, I can eat a banana, banana is radiation. It's background radiation. People in Brazil take sunbaths in it. People who live at high altitudes in Iran bathe in radioactive pools. It's misunderstood, and I think that's part of the deliberate, that there were many people who were against uranium, against, many people were against nuclear power because of this fear.
We may have come to a point in time when Earth is asking us, do you know what you're doing? Most of our power still comes from burning gas and coal, and the amount is going up, not down. If we do not cut carbon emissions by nearly 100%, the world will suffer serious damage. This is an even bigger problem than we thought.
The answer to solving climate change is very straightforward.
What's the best solution in your mind?
Largely nuclear.
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 Nuclear. We've been trained from the very beginning to fear nuclear power. The very thing that we fear is what may save us.
What's scary is not the same as what's dangerous. Coal is dangerous. You know, more people die from coal in a couple of weeks than have ever died from nuclear, which is all from the one accident in Chernobyl.
First question is, what about the waste? Nuclear waste is nothing compared to climate change.
Once you understand it, people have a better sense of not being afraid.
We have to provide clean, affordable energy to the world. In general, we need to move faster. We do this for our families, we do this for our kids and those generations.
We've run out of time to be afraid.
So the film that we try to do is to lay to rest that fear, as well as the fear of radioactive waste, which is nothing compared to the waste that we have in our atmosphere from oil, from gas, and coal. The waste from those products is so much more dangerous and has screwed up the atmosphere, leading to global warming. So when we talk about scale, the mass of energy we need in the world, not just now, but up to 2050, just projecting the 30 years, we're going to have to need a lot more electricity and a lot more power because countries like India, countries in Africa, countries, China, Uzbekistan, all these countries are coming online. They want more because they see what's around. There's going to be a tremendous demand, 2, 3, 4 times, maybe 5 times the amount of electricity we have now. Beyond electricity, we have transportation, we have factories that are producing cement, steel, fertilizer. This has to be, we cannot no longer use fossil fuels. It's killing us. We have to stop fossil fuels. The only thing that can stop it is cutting it down as much as possible, to zero ideally, but I don't think that's going to happen. So people talk about solar panels, they talk about wind turbine, they talk about hydropower, and that's all good, but it doesn't work all the time. The sun and wind are not here. Certain countries, they get more wind, like Denmark, Germany maybe. India gets more sun. So you balance the needs of every country. You make a grid, and you find that you're going to be short. When you're short on these renewables, what do they use? They use, for the most part, gas. In some poorer countries, they don't even use gas, they use coal. So you have a backup system for all these renewables. That's what contributes to the total amount of carbon dioxide. It's huge. It's a huge number. In fact, if you go to gas, for example, where it's methane, you turn your stove on, it goes click, 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 right? That's what you hear. That's gas that's leaking. methane gas is leaking all the time, from on the pipeline into your home. It's going into the atmosphere. 25% of the waste that we have up there causing this heat is methane gas. The rest comes from coal and oil. So it's a real problem. The backup that we need to use is nuclear energy. We have to tie in nuclear to the grid, and we're not really doing that. People accept nuclear, but they don't really understand that it can do much more because of fears that are out of date. Science is advanced. The building of these plants is even better than ever, but we have to build more. And the film urges an industrial line production, like stamping out airplanes. I mean, on a level of that amount, 1,000 reactors, 2,000 reactors. We have to put them all over the world. And in the United States, there's an emphasis now on small modular reactors, which are good. I mean, they're assembled. You can assemble them in factories and assembly lines, and you ship parts like Lego parts to a place and you assemble it. You can float your reactor right out of there, let's say along the coastline of China. You can float it down to all these cities. Russia has a small modular reactor, one of the best in the world. It was shipped up to Pevek in the Arctic. Pevek, the city of Pevek. Environmentalists were saying it's going to sink, it's going to be a nuclear Titanic. Nonsense. There's only been one accident of consequence. The accident at Fukushima in Japan, it's called a nuclear disaster, but there were no deaths. Not one single death from radiation. It was all tsunami and earthquake. But don't forget, the earthquake was the worst earthquake Japan ever had. So there's another story that's made kind of exaggerated beyond belief. We have to move on. Our science is crucial. We have to understand the world and use nuclear power, which is a gift, like Prometheus from the gods. It really is a gift. And we screwed it up. It started to be built by Eisenhower and Kennedy in the United States. Russia did big advances in it. But then the environmentalists got down on it, as well as the oil companies, because they didn't want the competition. And it slowed down enormously in the United States in the 70s, 1980s, 90s. It died in the United States. And in Russia and China, no, it kept going. China especially, because they came late to the game. They built big. They have 50-some reactors now, but they are planning to build 170 more reactors by 2038. They're spending $440 billion. And this is very important to understand the global picture. The head of Rosatom, Andrei Likachev, wonderful man, very smart. He said there are now in the world 460 gigawatts, that's billion, 460 gigawatts of nuclear energy. He says if we took that out and replaced it with fossil fuels, it would be 2 billion more tons of waste in the atmosphere, 2 billion more tons. And so in other words, nuclear power at this point in time provides about 11% of the world's power. It's nothing. It could do much more. It could do 60%, it could do 50%, 80% even, as they have in France. France has nuclear power. So he said, Likachev said, nuclear energy, nuclear power is an extra lung for the universe, an extra lung. We have 2 lungs, we're talking about an extra lung. But he's saying we need another lung. We need a 4th lung. We have to use nuclear power to build up our lung power so that we can have a clean universe and a better future. The world will be a lot cleaner and a lot happier if we can get this right and get our energy systems in order. People in poor countries will continue to use coal. In India, they will. They'll chop down trees. They'll even use wood, anything for fuel. But it's going to just hurt the universe. So we have to think as one. We may be at war with each other, but we have to think as one planet. What's healthy for this planet?
United States of clean energy. Is it possible?
I know, I said that in the film, and that was my hope. But now with this degeneration in relations between the United States and Russia, which is wholly unnecessary in my opinion. We were natural partners, and we became partners in space. And Russia sells us a lot of uranium to the United States. Do you know that the program megawatts to megatons was a program when the Soviet Union dissolved in 1991. The United States made a deal to take the uranium, the warheads, the nuclear warheads from Russia, and they downblended it into nuclear power. So about half of the U.S. power system was running off Russian nuclear weapons. Wow. Very few people know that, but that really worked. In other words, you have to handle nuclear power, well. You have to really, it has to be safe, but that's what industries do that. Chemical industry does it, oil does, it's waste, it's dangerous, yes, but you have to handle it well, and it can be handled. We've been doing it for years. Radioactive waste is very well tracked, it's clean, it's been in casks and water, it's been buried underground in Finland. Radioactivity also decays very quick. 99% after 40 years of that danger is out. So it's all doable, but we're not doing it enough because of fear, because of political inertia. Politicians are not going to risk, a new program and the money. But China has proven that you can build at cost. They're building big. 170 reactors by 2038 is about 10 or 12 a year. That's a lot of reactors. They've got to build that size. And China's building the Hualong and the Linglong. They have a big one and the small ones.
Regarding natural-born killers, has the media obsession with death and murder changed somehow in worst, or?
Well, I made a movie about natural-born killers, which was satire about the media, how obsessed they were with violence in the 1990s in America. I saw the difference. It was a new world. And it's this sensationalism, this love of sensationalism which sells, horrible TV shows that emphasize serial killers and murderers. So the world becomes dulled, becomes callous to violence. That was what that movie was about.
You made the movies about war and power. How do these terms define mankind?
Yeah, I like power. Because power is crucial to understand. It is a gift to the world. We need power. People have to get up in the morning and they want to have implements to use. They need tools. If you're cutting sugar cane in India, wouldn't you rather have a sugar cane grinder that will make it easier for you? That's the nature of life. We improve. And this is what's going to happen in the world. It's not going to stop moving. So there'll be people will have babies. They're going to have population growth and so forth and so on. We need to deal with that. We're not dealing with it. Western governments are cowardly about this. Very cowardly, especially the EU. France, thank God. England has started to get into it heavy. But Italy, Spain, Germany is the worst coward of all. They are not being intelligent about this at all. The Green Party has gotten into the power, controls the argument in Germany, and has unfortunately taken Germany on a disastrous course. It's all pro-NATO, but it's anti-nuclear power.
In the end of Natural-Born Killers, Mr. Leonard Cohen said the future is murder. Do you agree with this?
I hope not. That was a warning. But we can change it. I'm an optimist. I'm an optimist. Science and trust in science and progress technological progress is important. Not just to make money, but to save the world.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
În 24 de ore, peste 3.000 de aeronave trec pe cerul României. Gheorghe Sînpetrean a lucrat în controlul traficului aerian de rută. A lăsat cerul și avioanele când a ieșit la pensie. Primele 2 voluntariate au fost la campionatele europene de tenis de masă, iar la TIFF este pentru prima dată.
Cred că în urmă cu 25 de ani, aproximativ 25 de ani, am fost la un curs în străinătate Și vizitând unul dintre muzeele de acolo, am remarcat la un moment dat, între angajații, să zic, muzeului, între ghizii muzeului, un distins domn cu părul foarte cărunt și care nu avea uniforma angajaților muzeului, dar ștergea pur și simplu praful de pe aripa unui avion. Și, nu știu, s-a născut așa o curiozitate care m-a îndemnat la sfârșitul vizitei să-l întreb cine este. Am cerut permisiunea să întreb și mi-am spus, sper că nu e o întrebare foarte personală, și ce face. Atunci am aflat, sau atunci am auzit întâia oară despre voluntariat. Era un domn, cred că mai aproape de 80 de ani decât de 70 de ani, și care, în fine, fusese veteran în războiul din Vietnam, foarte pasionat de aviație, așa cum și eu am o pasiune foarte mare pentru zbor, pentru aviație. Și da, pe moment, da, am fost foarte impresionat. Nu cred că atunci s-a născut ideea de a face voluntariat. A doua zi nu mi-am dorit foarte tare să fac voluntariat. Dar probabil că undeva a rămas această idee și da, iată-mă, sunt acum aici la al treilea voluntariat. Cu siguranță a face voluntariat mă ajută să mă simt util și să dăruiesc timp și energie comunității din care fac parte. Da, aș încuraja pe oricine care poate ezită să, nu știu, completeze o cerere sau să facă voluntariat, deci aș încuraja pe oricine, indiferent de vârstă, să facă voluntariat. Nu doar, nu știu, pensionarii sau nu doar pe pensionari îi invit din toată inima să se bucure de voluntariat, dar poate chiar și vârste intermediare, nu știu, 30, 40, 50, nu știu, să facă voluntariat. Da. Marea majoritate a colegilor mele, chiar aș fi curios, n-am întrebat care este media de vârstă, dar ceva mă face să cred că media de vârstă a voluntarilor de la TIFF, de exemplu, este sub 25 de ani. Sper să nu greșesc, dar cred că este sub 25 de ani. Probabil că 16 ani cel mai tânăr sau cea mai tânără voluntară și da, nu știu, nu sunt sigur că eu aș fi, poate că sunt voluntari și peste, nu știu, 66 de ani, nu știu.
Voluntariatul la TIFF este ca o mașinărie complexă, spune Gheorghe, care scaune, împarte programul și ziarul, aperitiv, ajută spectatorii să-și găsească locul în sală, dar și dă cu mătura în sala de cinema. În pauză învață de la tineri despre rețelele sociale.
Ce pot să spun este că, de fapt, TIFF-ul este o stare de spirit, sau voluntariatul la TIFF este o stare de spirit. Și faptul că întâlnești oameni, faptul că relaționezi cu, dincolo de vârstă, dincolo de diferența de vârstă, mi se pare absolut formidabil. Deci mi se pare, este o experiență extraordinară, pe care încă o dată o recomand din toată inima și da, am învățat că, de exemplu, se poate întâmpla să faci voluntariat. La un moment dat discutăm între noi, nu? Ce te-a adus aici? De ce ai venit? Colegii voluntari între noi. Și unul dintre răspunsurile care pur și simplu m-au uimit, nu exagerez dacă spun asta, a fost o tânără care mi-a spus că, sau în fine ne-a spus că a venit să facă voluntariat adusă de o prietenă, care prietenă făcuse voluntariat la TIFF anul trecut și am întrebat, ok, ce ți s-a părut? Sau cu ce a fost impresionată prietena ta anul trecut și te-a convins să vii să faci voluntariat? Și răspunsul mi s-a părut absolut uluitor. Răspunsul a fost cheful de la sfârșit de... Da, și nu mi-aș fi imaginat niciodată că cineva ar putea să vină să facă... Și Da, ideea este că cred că noi, cei trecuți de a doua sau poate, nu știu, dacă a treia tinerețe, avem nevoie să, nu știu, să avem o mai bună definire sau, dacă definiții a tinerilor din... Nu cred că sunt mai buni decât noi, nu cred că sunt mai răi decât noi, scuze. Și este un foarte bun exercițiu spre deschidere și spre înțelegerea viitorului, de fapt.
De acord. Da. Veți merge la chef. Urma să vă întreb asta oricum.
Da. Chiar și noaptea trecută s-a întâmplat să particip la primul chef de la TIFF și da, e unul dintre lucrurile cele mai bune care se întâmplă la TIFF. Deși am ezitat, deci n-am știut să merg, să nu merg și da, m-am bucurat că până la urmă am fost. Și cu siguranță o să particip și la cheful final, ca să spun așa. Eu cred că a fi voluntar la TIFF este mai degrabă un privilegiu. În fine, sunt sigur că nu acesta este motivul pentru care se întâmplă acest interviu, dar da, TIFF-ul este o marcă. TIFF-ul este o marcă pentru Cluj. Ceea ce a făcut domnul Tudor Giurgiu și echipa sau echipele din jurul domniei sale mi se pare absolut fascinant. Este cea de-a 22-a ediție. Să pornești un proiect pe care să-l continui și să îl șlefuiești 22 de ani, mi se pare absolut impresionant. Deci faptul că noi, clujenii, am putea să punem, hai să nu spun umărul, că poate sună, nu știu, ca un clișeu sau sună patetic, da? La buna desfășurare a TIFF-ului, mi se pare un veritabil privilegiu pe care noi îl avem aici în Cluj.
Cel mai emoționant moment a fost când soția sa a apreciat ideea de a-și dărui timpul și energia la TIFF.
Una dintre frumoasele surprize pe care le-am avut legată de voluntariatul la TIFF este legată de timpul... În fine, eram cu soția mea acum 2 dimineți la o cafea și povesteam despre ce se întâmplă în voluntariat și la un moment dat, spre sfârșitul conversației noastre, soția mea mi-a spus că este foarte mândră că eu fac voluntariat. Și da, m-a impresionat foarte, foarte tare asta.
Voluntarii au reprezentat încă de la primele ediții ale TIFF o sursă inepuizabilă de energie, zâmbete și bunăvoie. În acest an, peste 500 de voluntari duc mai departe această energie.
We must find that woman. Is that what you said? They're idiots. They've all been knighted. Makes it official, then. I'm going to spare you from a life in prison, Jean Valjean.
My name is Captain Barbossa.
Welcome aboard the Black Pearl. Oh! It's a fiction, not a moral treatise.
But isn't that the duty of art? To elevate us above the beast.
I'd have thought that was your duty, Abbé, not mine.
You know this is true.
You can't stop.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
Welcome to Cluj.
Thank you.
Thank you for accepting this interview. It's an honor to have in my show. It's called Transilvania Culturală, meaning Cultural Transylvania.
Great.
I will start abruptly. You have a long and successful acting career for a half a century. Could you please tell us what does acting mean to you?
Well, it's something that I saw when I was young, 5, in small town Toowoomba in Queensland in Australia. And it was an experience because my mum was a single mum and a worker. She worked. Both grandmothers would take me to movies or to theatre to see things. And that became a very special impact on my childhood. I was being looked after by the theatre and by film, you know what I mean? And I never thought, oh, I want to do that. I'm happy to just be at it, you know. And then when I got to high school, we were a very sports-orientated school. I wasn't very sports-orientated, so I gravitated towards doing plays up in the library at lunchtime or whatever. And I learnt instruments and things. And then at university, it was a very active time in the late 60s, early 70s politically, and I liked that spirit. And then a professional theatre company started in that town, and the director saw some of the university work, and he gave mates and myself jobs. And I started off with a 3-year contract, so it just sort of was there I was there at the right place at the right time.
How do you assume a role when you know you were there when you should be?
Often my agents get very upset because I go, I don't think it's me. I don't think I'm right. You know what I mean? Things that I was going to turn down the King's Speech, I was going to turn down Pirates, I was going to turn down... Until I found what is hopefully an individual way of approaching this so that I'm not doing it pretending to be like somebody else who would do it. Do you know what I mean? You have to kind of take a kind of ownership of it. And I've been fortunate in most cases, not in all, to find something. I don't know if I ever found my inner Egyptian god.
You play Ra.
I did. I liked the idea of playing Ra, but it became a, you know, it was a casting controversy and all of that sort of stuff. Even though it was, you know, mythological, it wasn't really based in social realities, but it was still a good thing because it was a great team.
I quote you. When the screenplay for Shine came along, at the first time I thought this is actually kind of my territory to play a holy fool. How has this role enriched you?
Yes. Well, it did. I mean, I had been in the theatre for 24 years. I'd made a personal quest because I worked in repertory theatre in companies for long periods, you know. So I was sort of working my way through a lot of the Shakespearean... I'm not the hero. I'm not Coriolanus. I'm not really Hamlet. But I am okay as Lear's Fool or Autolycus in The Winter's Tale or Sir Andrew Aguecheek in Twelfth Night. I knew they were mine. And then when I read Shine, I thought he kind of... You know, I'd done one other film before that and 2 small parts way back. I just didn't... And our industry was really flourishing at that point in the 70s. But there were a lot of pioneering films. You had to be able to ride a horse with your shirt off. And that wasn't my territory. And suddenly when a pianist with an oblique, different view of the world and a different talent and different conflicts in his life came along, I thought this is classical in a way.
Are you a lucky boy dancing with circumstances?
Was I a lucky boy? I don't know. I suppose people might get a sense of the territory that you have worked in. And I did like characters that had a rich inner life, an expansive life, whether that's Barbossa being very vain and very arrogant and very bossy on a boat is the same as, you know, the big ego of someone like the Marquis de Sade, or, you know, the theatre owner in Shakespeare in Love, is that he's on the edge. My whole job is going to collapse at any moment, you know. I like those dimensions to be there somehow.
I quote you again. I enjoy being a dressing room slut. Would you please elaborate a little bit on this?
I love the spirit and energy of theatrical life. It's a strange adolescent kind of existence because particularly when I was touring, you'd be on a job for 3 to 6 months and then you'd move to another state and a new group of people and you have to rediscover friendships. You build an ongoing family. I just love the energy of the diversity. You know, Shakespeare, in his plays, you can calculate now, you can do those plays with 12 people. Shakespeare could have a company of 12 actors, and they would all be in some ways an archetype that could play Hamlet or Coriolanus, or play the clowns, or play the rogues, or play the malcontents, you know. And actors in a group bring a diversity of personalities. Everyone tries to say, oh, they're narcissistic, self-obsessed people. And you go, no, you have 12 people in a company and you've got 12 very different views of life. And it is a job where you get to play. You know, not many people go to work and muck around.
This is great. Do you prefer to play fairly red, baggy characters? Great parts, but red, baggy. Why?
Yeah. Well, I think life is always rough around the edges, you know. There are certain moments in classical theatre that I never connected with. I studied a lot of theatre at university. I never got into the French Racine and Corneille, the grandeur of the voice, and you don't see any action. It's all like you're told about it. It's all off stage. That didn't appeal to me. I instantly went for Shakespeare because he could be in the seat of power, where the court is, with flawed kings, and then he could be in the pub. You know, one of the great plays, Henry IV, with Falstaff and Prince Hal, is just the most amazing substitute father-son play. They're rat-baggy. It's life, warts and all.
Have you sometimes found it hard to get rid of, step out a character?
No. For me, it is a state of play, and in the theatre, when you're rehearsing a play, there are parts of that rehearsal where you go, oh, what's my line? You go straight off the character and just say to the stage manager, what's the next bit? Yeah, thanks, Paul. And you go back in and you replay, you play again within the parameters of the character. So at the end of the day, you take off the costume and have a drink and let it all disappear. That's what I do. Some people maintain that they like to, you know, throughout a shoot, you do find that you find a molecular kind of energy that you're all, like with David Helfgott, I was always thinking, never talk slowly, always when I'm talking to people, just keep that on the boil because you want it to be a second nature part of the apparatus, you know. But no, I don't take it home because my family would, they'd go nuts. Don't bring home the Marquis de Sade, you know what I mean?
Yes. How important is humor to you?
Well, how important is life? Yes. You know, there are beautiful cultures. You know, in the English-speaking world, the Irish just have a life force that is based in a playful humor, playful with language, playful with ideas, playful with other people. Australians have that in a slightly more sardonic way, you know. It's always good, you know, even in I did a Nikolai Gogol short story, The Diary of a Madman, and it's a tragicomedy. The guy is clinically, he goes insane in that very oppressive, massive bureaucracy in Russian society in the 19th century. And it's tragic because he loses contact with reality, as does Lear, you know. But there's still humor in the vulnerability of his delusions that he is King Ferdinand VIII of Spain, you know. And Gogol, he brings out the rough conflicts and the obliqueness of the humanity that's inside these characters, so that we recognize, you know, and can empathize and maybe identify with, you know.
I quote you again on accepting roles that might be considered risky. Occasionally, you need to jump off a cliff and do things you know are not immediately within your grasp.
Yes.
Could you please elaborate on this? How does the jumping off the cliff work?
This is funny. I was talking to my son who's visiting. He's a graduate of London Film School just last year, and I said, they're inviting, I can bring a guest, and I said, would you like to come? He likes film festivals, you know. And he went on a road trip. He'd been to Romania. He'd been to Cluj before. He did a road trip with some friends maybe 3 years ago. They started down the bottom and they went up, you know. And when he was in Central America, he did the bungee jump. You know, they hurl themselves off a ledge, and he said, I said, what was it like? Because someone filmed him, and he looked, it was colour photography, but he looked white. He was white, and I said, what was that like? He said, exhilarating, but I would never do it again. But I had done it once. So mine is more metaphoric. I don't want the bungee cord, and I don't want to plunge. But imaginatively, to not know the end result. You can't see it. You have to really explore, heading towards, like playing King Lear. You go, look, okay, I've got to get into the mind of being not 80, but old. You know what I mean? It's like Berenger in Exit the King is 400 years old. And there were parts of that I thought of. What's the oldest thing I can think of is the Galapagos tortoise. We had a tortoise in Australia in the zoo who was born when Charles Dickens was alive. Do you know what I mean? And I thought, use some of that. That when he moves, he's ancient, you know. Find it, don't anticipate it or demonstrate it or illustrate it. You try and make it. Take the audience along with you in the moment of discovery. You know, you see great comedians do that. They come in and they just start talking to a stadium, and people are laughing and laughing because they're going, I'm just releasing what you're thinking anyway. Do you know what I mean? I'm bringing out the humor and the absurdity of the world around us. It's a very potent experience.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ne bucurăm foarte tare că am avut premiera la noi acasă și am avut parte de o premieră cu populație atât de mixtă, începând de la prieteni, chiar au fost colegi pe care noi am văzut din liceu și au venit la film. Mi se face pielea de găină, a fost super emoționant să fie premiera mondială acasă și mulțumim, ne bucurăm tare pentru asta.
Sunt foarte bucuroasă și recunoscătoare că primul nostru lungmetraj, documentarul nostru, a luat aripi și l-am putut arăta în cadrul festivalului TIFF. Și pe lângă asta suntem iar recunoscători echipei și totodată persoanelor dragi nouă care ne-au sprijinit și care au fost alături de noi pe tot parcursul.
Daniel, un bărbat care s-a convertit la islam, se căsătorește cu Liz, o tânără independentă și cu o personalitate puternică. În drumul lor către fericire și liniște sufletească, cei doi trebuie să-și găsească din nou credința în sine și în celălalt, în ciuda tuturor prejudecăților pe care le întâmpină.
Clar că diferențele ne atrag. E ca la magnet, cred. Și toți, de fapt, toate familiile sunt mixte. Chiar dacă unul e musulman și altul e creștin, nu e vorba de asta. Toți suntem mixti pentru că background-ul fiecărei familii e mixt și suntem originali. Poate unul pune furculița pe masă într-un fel și cealaltă familie pune altfel. Și suntem crescuți cu niște idei, credințe în familia de origine și după care când ne căsătorim, de fapt sunt două sisteme cu două neamuri, fiecare cu neamul lui, care vin împreună. Și clar că e ceva acolo care te atrage, chimia aia care cred că se numește dragoste, dar în același timp trebuie să învățăm să ne acceptăm unele diferențe și cred că dacă reușim să trecem peste ceea ce ne diferă, rămânem împreună.
Ce-mi doresc eu este să deschidem un spațiu de comunicare, de dialog, un spațiu intercultural și totodată intrafamilial, dar ne dorim să încercăm să construim și un pod spre acceptare, spre necunoscut și spre iubire.
Cei doi protagoniști își documentează viața în timp ce întâmpină diverse piedici. Prin intermediul filmărilor adunate pe parcursul primilor ani ai relației lor, Soțul meu musulman prezintă o imagine intimă a călătoriei lui Liz și a lui Daniel către maturitate, precum și felul în care încearcă să depășească prejudecățile celor din jur și diferențele culturale și de religie în lupta pentru iubirea lor.
Prima etapă a fost perioada în care am filmat. Cred că acolo ne-am obișnuit pur și simplu și ne-am asumat faptul că vrem să facem un film și să fim cât se poate de transparenți. Și după aceea a venit etapa de montaj, unde la montaj acolo a trebuit să reușim să ne desprindem, să nu mai vedem pe noi acolo și să vedem două personaje.
Eu cred că asta este una dintre frumusețile documentarului, că niciodată nu știi unde te va duce. Și atunci când am început acest film, ne-am dorit, bineînțeles, să nu avem nimic greu, să nu avem obstacole, să fie totul perfect. Dar nu a fost așa și ne-am dat seama că ne-am maturizat împreună cu acest film și practic e ca o bucată din sufletul nostru.
Filmul Soțul meu musulman va putea fi urmărit în perioada următoare în diverse festivaluri, iar din toamnă va intra și pe o cunoscută platformă de video streaming.